dimension that is connected to the third DNA strand template. See how easy this system is? This is really how it works. It's an eloquent, beautiful design where if you understand the 15 dimensions and you understand that 12 of them can be embodied in a human form, you have a 12-strand DNA template, you have 12 of those 15 chakras that are going to be directly connected to the energy that's feeding into the DNA. It's all connected. And it's connected to, we get into a level called the kundalini, which are the life force energies that are usually dormant, that are coiled at the base of the spine. A lot of the Eastern religions and philosophies get into activating the kundalini. Unfortunately, they tend to not teach you about the rest of things, like the scalar grids the body's built on, and if there's blockages in those, you can have some really outrageous kundalini activations. I mean, people sometimes go crazy from kundalini activations because the ones that are teaching the old Eastern systems aren't aware of some of the distortion factors that are in the DNA strand template and that will also manifest within the kundalini energy currents because they're in the DNA. So we deal with the DNA, clearing distortions out of the DNA, then progressively activating the DNA strands to create kundalini activation and chakra activation, which creates Merkaba field activation. So it's all connected. This is the science of ascension, Merkaba mechanics. And it was the ancient sciences that were taught for hundreds of thousands of years on this planet. When people knew how to go through stargates, and it was no big deal. They didn't have cars and automobiles then, they didn't need them. They had free energy that didn't pollute anything coming from the grids, from the energy grids of the planet itself, because they knew how to run it. It's just like we have a chakra system, so is the planet. We are connected, our chakra system is connected to the planet's chakra system. Okay? So we have chakra 1, chakra 2, sacral chakra. Chakra 3, processing three-dimensional energies, is the solar plexus chakra. It's right about in here. You can begin playing with these and trying to sense them, like lay down at night, kind of relax and try to feel where they are. You can also, if anybody does dowsing, you can gently hold one of the dowsing things, you know, like lay down and just hold it there, and you'll start to find where your chakras are, because it'll start to do circles in the areas where the chakras are. Okay, we have the third chakra. Fourth chakra, this is what everybody in the New Age movement likes to talk about. Open your heart with love and light. It's a wonderful concept, and yes, we need to do that. The fourth chakra is connected to the fourth dimensional frequencies, which is the transition point from you have your D3, you have your D1, 2, 3 down here. It forms our little reality bubble down here. When you're dealing with the D4 frequency, you're going into the next harmonic. When you go into D4, this is where you're going into the domain of the little grays and a bunch of other things that like to manipulate people. When you're told to open your heart chakra, just do meditations, open it with light and love, it's not only your heart chakra you're opening. Each chakra corresponds to a level in the auric field, and you're opening your astral body field when you open your heart chakra. When they're telling you to open your heart chakra indiscriminately, and not look at anything negative, just open it to everything. They're saying, let's get them to open their astral field so we can get in there and mess with them. All right? This is something they don't tell you in the New Age movement. This is something they don't know and they don't want to hear. But if you're willing to understand this, it's no big deal. You can love somebody without laying yourself down as a doormat to let yourself get walked on. You can modulate your heart chakra and choose when it's wise to let your fields loose. Because once you start sensing your chakras, and start sensing the connection. You can feel an energy connection. Once you know to look for it, you can feel it between the chakra and a certain area in the atmosphere right around you. And you start to realize when you do certain things with the chakra, it changes the feel of this. You can learn to fortify the astral field, which creates more energy in the heart chakra that allows good frequency to come through, but will block out distortion frequency. So it's very important to learn to work with the chakras, but also what's deeper. When you work with DNA, you're changing chakras. You're changing the whole thing. So if you go to people that do chakra work, but they're not doing anything else, they're only treating the surface. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. It's not going to do a lot of good. The leg's still going to be broken. It may do surface changes temporarily, but those changes won't hold unless you take them deep into the template, which is the Cathara grid. The Maharic seal technique goes right into the Cathara grid, which programs the D12 frequencies into the DNA, which goes into the chakras. So it's grounding those frequencies right into the body pattern, which is different than other systems that don't teach you about the Cathara level. Okay. Up here, we have the fifth chakra. The fifth chakra is concerned with communications. And a lot of people have constricted fifth chakras, particularly people that are afraid of like speaking and they're kind of shy and that kind of stuff. if you learn to see auric fields, you'll be able to see constriction in that chakra because they're holding back the energy there. That has to do with the communication facilities, with speaking and communicating verbally with others. It also governs a lot of other things. These are some of the outer attributes they're associated with. It corresponds to a level of the auric field that we call the archetype level, which is the 5th dimensional level of the auric field. The auric field, just like the chakra systems, corresponds to each of the 15 dimensions. So you have literally a series of energy fields extending out around you. To understand in simple terms, this little diagram down here of circles. Each one of these circles represents 3 dimensions. They're called huva bodies. Huva bodies are light sound bodies, and they are composed of 3-dimensional frequencies each. Okay, we're a 3-dimensional consciousness down here, and most of us right now, because the DNA is not activated, have a particular configuration in the auric field that looks like a membrane between our D3 level and our astral body level. Okay? This is called the Nada Huva body. It corresponds to chakras 1, 2, and 3, to DNA strand templates 1, 2, and 3. That is the first level of our 3 levels of our auric field. You'll have your physical particle base, you'll have your emotional D2 body, and you'll have your mental D3 body. To begin the process of expanding into higher consciousness, you work with the DNA. It begins to make the higher chakras process more frequency, which begins to dissolve the membrane. It's called an etheric membrane between the 3rd and 4th dimensional frequencies in the auric field. That allows that level of consciousness to start embodying. So as you work with DNA, all of these things happen at the same time. When you're building Merkaba, you're activating DNA, you're activating Kundalini, you're breaking down the divisions in the Huva bodies, or the light sound bodies. They're not just circles, they're spheres. You can imagine yourself walking around in multi-levels of concentric spheres, one inside the other. And the process that we call ascension or evolution or getting the heck out of the lower dimensions is the process of progressively opening up those little inside spheres, breaking them with frequency by bringing in the level of the next sphere, and then you're out to the next level of expansion. You eventually expand out of matter-particle density. We'll get into in a little bit. The density levels that are associated with each Huva body level, with each, and it's not just us that have Huva bodies. The planet does too. The galaxy does too. They're, in fact, in the Keys of Enoch, I think they refer to them as time cells, consciousness time cells, which was a little vague for me, so I tried to, I define them better, and they told me Huva bodies is what they're called. So I use that term. I always think of Hoover vacuum cleaners, but it helps me remember it. So these are part of our anatomy. We have a chakra system, which is the first thing you really need to know, because a lot of the exercises in bioregenesis are using symbol code induction into the chakras, where you need to know where certain chakras are to move the energy. It says, go to the 7th chakra, and you're like, where is that? After a while, it comes natural. You just know where they are. A lot of people already know the first 7. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is also known as the 3rd eye, 6th chakra. That's the one where when that begins to activate and open, people start to get very clear inner imagery, psychic imagery. They can do a lot of remote viewing and that kind of thing. And the more you activate DNA, the clearer your inner visualizations will become as far as what you can see in the higher dimensional fields. That happens through the 6th chakra. That's connected to the pineal gland. Now here we have the 7th chakra. It's called the crown chakra. This is where, in a normal field integration, which mine mostly, the consciousness comes in from its non-manifest state, and it integrates into the body through the crown chakra, and then anchors right around the base of the spine in the fetal pattern, which is into the first 8 cells, actually. We get into the first 8 cells that are stationed at the base of the spine. That's where the original imprint, the original fetal integration memories are stored. Okay, so when we enter fetal integration, the baby body has these chakras too, but most of these look like little buds. They're not open yet. They're not funnels yet. They're little like round things that have screens on them. And slowly, as the body gets used to being here, they'll progressively open. Well, what we did, it was kind of funny. We had some problems getting in the crown chakra of the body, so we had to rip the seal off and open up the heart chakra, and we threw ourselves into the astral level, which is not the usual process. So we all have a memory someplace of coming into the body. But when we're dealing with the chakras, most people are dealing with 7 activated chakras right now. You have 1 through 7 are basically the chakras that are active in the human form as it is functioning right now. The lower ones are functioning pretty well, but they're not able to ground or bring in some of the frequencies from the higher ones. So the higher ones are not processing as much frequency as they normally would or could from the higher dimensional fields. These chakras not only bring in energy, they bring in consciousness. Your consciousness is held in the dimensional scale in the form of frequency, scalar frequency. So when you're bringing in consciousness, you are bringing in energy frequency from the interdimensional spectrum that has your particular consciousness signature on it. The chakras are the part of the apparatus that allows that consciousness to embody. If the DNA template is blocked, the chakras will be partially blocked, which will block out your ability to run that portion of your consciousness into embodiment where you can know it as consciousness here. Right. Now, we have chakras that are coming into activation now, particularly with people who are working with the DNA strands. With the period of time between 2000 and 2017, the stellar activation cycle that's going to happen, people are going to go into spontaneous activation of DNA, and some of these higher chakras are going to start to activate whether or not the body is ready to handle those higher frequencies coming in. That's why some people will start to get sick between now and 2017, because they will not be able to handle the frequencies moving through the environment. This can be stopped if you work with the DNA. You simply open up the DNA that opens up the chakras that allows those frequencies to ground in the body. Because if those frequencies try to come into the body from the higher dimensional spectrum, say you have chakra 7, then you go into chakra 8, runs kind of diagonally this way, and then chakra 9 runs here. They're bringing an 8th and 9th dimensional frequency. If the body can't anchor that, if the portions of your scalar templates that make up your body happen to be blocked or distorted, they're supposed to be receivers of frequency. If they can't receive that frequency, that higher frequency comes in and starts to crush those templates, and it distorts further the scalar grids, which distorts the one next to it and next to it. So it creates a condition called molecular compaction. This is actually what causes death. Death is not natural to the human body. It occurs because of molecular compaction. Molecular compaction is a condition that erodes the template that the body's built on progressively. And what that creates is a progressive degeneration and change in the chemical hormonal compounds as they're supposed to manifest within the body. It actually starts about age 12. Actually starts at birth, but if we're going to be technical, age 12, certain hormones are released in the body that aren't supposed to be because of certain DNA blockages. They're characteristic to our race that we've had for thousands of years. So there are potentials here of immortality, of longevity, not to mention ascension. That when you work with this level, template levels of your being, these things become a potential reality. It's not going to happen overnight, but knowing the potential is there, knowing there's a process that you can begin using and begin learning more about. To get there, it's worth learning. It's very exciting, and I've seen in the other civilizations that were built on this type of knowledge, they had phenomenal healing abilities. There were beings coming from all sorts of interstellar race communities for healing, because the humans knew how to do it, because they had the scalar technologies. They understood the template mechanics. Okay, so what we're going to go into now, we have the 8th and 9th chakra running through the head that are dormant right now. They're beginning to activate, and they will progressively activate more so the closer we get to like 2017, because that's when we're going to be pulling in 8th and 9th dimensional frequency into the Earth grid. The Earth grid works in a similar way. It draws in frequency from the multidimensional spectrum. Usually, when we're not in a stellar activation cycle, the Earth is stationed in its own little time cell, its own little Nadahuva body, and the 4th dimensional frequencies and the ones higher are blocked out by a membrane. It's not a membrane you're going to find if you go out in space and look for it. It's a frequency, like a frequency fence. In a stellar activation cycle, the chakras on the planet open, and they begin to run that frequency through, and it begins to break down the barriers between the time cells. It begins to break down the barriers between the planetary Huva bodies and the galactic ones as well. And what that creates is a condition of time cycle blending between the time cycles that are in the higher harmonics and the time cycles that are here. This is what we're moving into right now. And we may get some really strange effects. People are already seeing, like, I saw a castle in the sky. I could have swore I just saw an image of a big castle in the sky. Am I losing my mind? No, you're going to bleed through. It's called a dimensional bleed through. These are some of the experiences that you may run into as we go through this. Let me see how I'm doing on time. Not too bad. Okay, now can we move this down? Oh, wait, I'm going to show you one more thing. In Earth core here, this is the 13th chakra. It's called the Earth core chakra. That's where our electromagnetic fields connect to the Earth's electromagnetic fields. When we're running the Maharic seal, we're opening that chakra, And we're connecting with the scalar grids of the planet, temporarily throwing some energy down there to activate the Earth grids a little bit, and then drawing that energy back up to activate more things in our own bodies. It's a natural process. It actually helps the Earth when we do this, so we're not taking something or doing a violation to the Earth by taking those energies. Here is the 12th chakra. It's about 6 inches below the feet. When we're doing the Maharic seal exercise, there's that Maharic shield that is about 6 inches below that, about 12 inches below the feet. So there are parts of your anatomy that, if you know where they are, you can start using them to do things like protect your fields and use the Maharic seal. Can we pull this down a little bit, please? Okay. Now up here, we go from, we have the 7th, 8th, and 9th chakra. Then we have the 10th chakra. This is another one that's dormant, has been dormant for a long time. It's starting to come into activation on many people. It's about 6 inches above the head. Then above that one is the 11th chakra. It's about 18 inches above the head. And then about 36 inches above the head, we have the 14th chakra, which actually connects to coordinates in the universal scalar grids way out there. We're all connected to the unified field of the universe. Everything is connected. So this is the basic chakra system we're working with, and that's only the beginning of the fun. Okay, let's go to the next graph. And see, you'll be able to study this if you want to, at home. You can look at them and see where they are. You don't have to remember it all right now, because the charts are right there. Okay, just this side I need, really, just the diagram. They can read that later, it's not that important. Okay. These are the Huva bodies I was talking about. We have the dimension 1, 2, 3, harmonic 1, Huva body, but not a Huva body. Dimensions 4, 5, 6 has what's called the alpha Huva body. The alpha Huva body is also the level of identity that's called the soul matrix. Okay? When you come out to dimension 7, 8, 9, you have something called the beta Huva body. That is the 7, 8, 9 dimensional aspects of consciousness that are considered the oversoul identity level. Okay? And you come out here into dimensions 10, 11, and 12. This is called the Mahara Huva body. This is where we get Maharic shield and all of that. That's the D10, 11, and 12 aspects of consciousness, your dimensionalized consciousness. D12 is your Christed consciousness level. That is where you begin to completely pass out of form into, you become what's called hydroplasm. Hydroplasm is like free matter, liquid light. That's your avatar level of identity. These are portions of your identity, believe it or not, that you carry around with you all the time. You're never alone. You have this multi-vector consciousness, an awareness of yourself, simultaneously existing in a number of time frames, all at the same time. And there's an eternal self that stands back behind all of this while playing the game as well. That's the part of you, that's your eternal self that you want to find. You find it by integrating more and more of your higher dimensional identity. Where you begin to realize time is simultaneous. For one, it's all actually going down at once. It's just separated by the illusion of space-time, which is created actually by the DNA coding. You begin to realize how eternal you really are, and all of a sudden, whatever life dramas you find yourself in, be they incarnational, if you have your incarnational memory or your weird ones here, you start to realize you're an actor playing parts in the theater of time. And it's like a house of mirrors in time. We run into each other a lot of times, and we don't even realize it's us, because we forgot who we were. So as we progressively integrate these higher dimensional levels of our identity, we progressively go into a state of consciousness where you don't lose individuation. You expand the concept of individuation. You become one that knows itself as many, but is still one. And that progressively goes, that even the higher you expand, you progressively go into this concept. And it's very hard to describe. It's experiential. And as you begin to activate even the 4th and 5th DNA strand, and start tapping into the soul matrix level of identity, you start to get a feel for what this is. When you start to get playthroughs of your incarnations, and it feels like they're happening right now, you're not remembering a dead memory. You're tuning in to somebody else's brainwave pattern that's in a body in a different space-time location right now. It's a piece of you in a different space-time. Incarnation is simultaneous. Okay? As we expand, we begin to be more and more aware of that. Our time perception changes. We're no longer single vector consciousness perceiving one single line of development. We can observe several single lines of development all at the same time and know they're all us, which is really interesting. Then you realize that the drama you're involved in right now is very similar to the drama you're involved in all the other ones. Just like with me, I have been teaching Ascension for millions of years, if you look at it in linear terms. in many different space-time places. I have aspects of myself teaching these very same things in the terms that can be understood in the times. And it's really neat when you start to see that. Even your little life dramas, the little issues you're working on, you start to find your incarnations. You realize they're working on them too. You're doing a part, they're doing a part. There's these interwoven plans and reasons that you incarnate as all of yourselves. You're all working on a piece of it. When you start to get this and start to feel the reality, you can hear it from me, but it's going to be real to you. It's going to be the difference between believing and knowing. You can believe what I'm saying, but when you start to experience it, that's when you throw belief right out the window. You don't need belief because you just know. And this is what you have to look forward to as you work with these programs. Okay, when we move out of there, we get past dimension 10, 11, and 12, and we hit our D12 Christed consciousness level, which is something many people probably won't be hitting in this lifetime right now. Some of us can. It's a full 12-strand DNA activation. First, we got to worry about getting the templates in there, fixed, and then we have to progressively work with them. It takes time to activate the DNA templates, particularly since they haven't been active in thousands and thousands of years. It's like trying to turn the power back on in a house that's been sitting vacant for about 10 years. It's like you turn it on and you duck, waiting for, is it going to turn on at all? Or is it going to throw sparks and burn down half the house or what? The circuitry needs to clear itself for a while. Some people will be able to do it very quickly. Some people it will take more time. So we can't promise you that if you do this in 6 weeks flat, you can ascend. I wish it was that easy. I'm still working to clear the parent imprint out of my DNA strands. It's predicting whether I'm going to be, even though I know all the dynamics, I know how to do it, and I've done it before. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time between now and 2012 when the Stargate's open to get my own imprint cleared. But I know it works because I've done it before. And that's why I can say to you, I can't promise you that it will work for you this time, but it'll get you closer the next time. Maybe it will, but maybe it will this time. If you can get your DNA activated, you can get to the point where the barriers between your hoover bodies start to break down, you become capable of passing through stargates. You become capable of passing through them without spaceships. Spaceships are used primarily to use as a buffer to take you through if you can handle a certain amount of frequency infusion into the higher dimensions. You couldn't handle it with your body alone. So a lot of times people that are being taken on spaceships, they're actually having DNA repair done so they can progressively get more able to go through themselves. They used to call it ascension in the old days, sometimes they still do. It's the same process. You can look at it scientifically as Stargate passage, you can look at it spiritually as ascension. It is the same thing. Science and spirituality are one. They're just different translations, different way of looking at the way reality works and the way consciousness works. Okay, let's see, when we get down here, when we get out here to these levels, at this point we've expanded. If we've fully activated 12-strand, we blow ourselves right out of matter and we become hydroplasmic pre-matter liquid light, the Christos, the cosmic soup, but we're still conscious of ourselves being. And it's a very powerful level. You can't even describe it while you're in a human body, at least I can. You go into another level that corresponds to D13, 14, and 15. This is called the Raja Hoover body. This is the level of identity called the Rishi. And it is, again, a multi-level of identity. You know yourself as many, but you're not even in a liquid form at that point. You're in pure conscious radiation. And then there's one expansion that you'll go through to get out of the time matrix. You're still dimensionalized here. You still have some type of perception of the passage of time. Because the passage of time is created by dimensionalization and by consciousness moving itself through the dimensional structure at different angles. Time is really not a reality. Existence is a reality. Time is kind of like a game we play with ourselves to experience something other than not time. It's hard to describe. When you get up into the higher levels of being, why does it all exist? Something to do? I mean, I haven't figured that one out yet. Right? But there's this whole process of once you come into dimensionalization to experience space-time matter and individuation, you will have to go through this process of progressing back out. It's not just about, I go in, I'm going out tomorrow. It doesn't quite work like that. You get yourself stuck in dimensionalization, and there is a process, a physics process that you have to go through. It takes more than just being a good person to be able to send. I've had a lot of people in the news movement say to me, well, I'm a good person, the angels will get me through. It's like, oh really? I hope they recode your DNA because you're not going anywhere if they don't. You can. And I've had them say, oh, we don't need the details. So, you don't need the details. Okay, that's like trying to add up numbers without the numbers. you don't get very far. You have a concept of how many of this and how many of that, but you have no numbers to represent what you're trying to measure. You're not going to get a measurement. This is what's happening with the distortions in the New Age teachings. Personally, we can do overkill on detail, but we try to give just enough where it makes sense to your logical mind. Your mental body needs to integrate too. A lot of the light, love, spirit teachings are not teaching you to integrate the mental body. They're teaching you to forget that. That's lower mental stuff. Go into the spiritual spaces and don't worry about it. If you want to ground your spiritual identity of the higher dimensions, it has to come through the third dimensional mental body. If you refuse to integrate the mental body, you're creating a third chakra blockage, where you're not grounding those frequencies. You're not going to ascend while you have blockages in the chakras of those Deane stands. So this is going to be a group of people who we probably never thought you were going to get a course in spiritual integration at a UFO conference. But you are going to have more information on what real ascension is, what the science of it is, than most of the New Age people who have been claiming to be experts for the last 20 years. So be a little ahead of the game. When we get out past the Rajahuva body, this is where we make the transition completely into a different level of reality called the energy matrix that is not dimensionalized. I can't even explain the physics of it there. I've experienced it, and it's very hard to explain. It's like being a cloud of massive consciousness that stretches everywhere and touches everything and knows itself as everything and itself at the same time. It's a very special space of being. There's 3 levels to the energy matrix. One is called the triadic level, the next one is called the polaric level, and the last one out, the last expansion before you fully expand into complete at-one-ment, where you just know yourself as all, is the ecstatic level. Now the teachings that I'm bringing through right now are called ecstatic level teachings. Most people bringing through ascension teachings are bringing them through from about here. A few good ones are bringing them through from here. We're bringing them through from here. So the information is a lot more accurate, is a lot more detailed. And that's why it's different than a lot of the other things that are being taught out there. There's a lot more information contained within these areas. When you expand out of time, when you complete all this, intensive ascension stuff, you will get out into what's called the Tanatra Huva body. Next will be the Dhyana Huva body, and then the Prima Huva body. These are the levels of identity that are called ascended mastery levels. There's a lot of people in the New Age movement out there saying, oh, I'm an ascended master, or I'm talking to ascended masters. And it turns out if you do a matrix scan on these guys, they're talking to guys that are in D5. Well, they ascended from D3. Personally, I aim higher, because somebody in D5, you can have people here that have D5 consciousness. You could have people here, depending on the G code, that can have D12 consciousness. If something is calling itself an ascended master, but it's not explaining to you the structure of 15 dimensions, because that is the standard structure, that's the way they are structured. If they're telling you there's only 12 dimensions, they're only telling you about this part of things. They're omitting this part, either because they don't think you're ready to learn, or because they don't know themselves, because they haven't grown that far yet. A true ascended master consciousness is one who we all begin out here, in the pool of all we can call one. And it's energy, conscious energy. We move through the different levels and go down into full matter manifestation. Then we come all the way back up. That is an ascended master that hasn't come back yet. Now, that being has gone down, got all the codings of the 15-dimensional matrix and its double parallel matrix, and it's come all the way back up. Then when it comes back down into a body pattern, it can inhabit a body pattern of, say, an emerald order indigo with a 48-strand capacity. This is where the DNA matrices plug in. They will determine what amounts of your consciousness you can bring in from these higher levels. We have a 12-strand pattern. This race was created, the human race was created to be an avatar race. We were supposed to be the avatar guardians of the interplanetary solar system, of the stargates. We've fallen a long way. We can get back up there. Okay, we can switch to that one. Okay, here we go. Matter density levels and body types. Okay. We're dealing with the Nada-Huva body. Dimensions 1, 2, and 3, which is called harmonic universe 1, or harmonic, we call them harmonics of matter density or harmonic universes, whatever you want to call them. Harmonic universe 1 is characteristic of physical matter or gross matter density. It's density level 1, and the biologies tend to be carbon-based biology. Up here, in harmonic universe 2, is density level 2, in the alpha Huva body level, and this means when you integrate the alpha Huva body into the Nada Huva body, you change the Nada Huva body and transmute it into this. This is dimensions 4, 5, and 6, a different time cycle than this. This one moves faster. This is a carbon silica-based biology. That's density level 2. That's what we'll progress into next, as we begin to work with the DNA. Actually, the whole planet is going into that space between now and 2017. Because on the planetary level, the planetary Nada-Huga body is blending with the planetary Alpha-Huga body and part of the planetary Beta-Huga body with the opening of the 7 seals. So if we don't get our bodies ready to handle the same transitions, we're going to have a hard time staying in a physical body while the planet moves through these transitions, even if it goes well. Okay? When we get up to harmonic universe 3, density level 3, Beta-Huga body, that's if you integrated the Beta-Huga body, you would turn what you have now as a carbon-based body into a full silica-based biology. It's etheric matter density. It's what we look at, we see it as ghost images, but we don't look like ghosts to ourselves. When we're in that density, we still look like we're physical. Okay? When we get up into the Mahara-Huga body, this is when we get into integrating the hydroplasmic level, crystalline liquid light of being, or avatar levels of identity, density 4, dimensions 10, 11, and 12, is crystalline liquid light. It's a liquid silica-based biology. That's when we find ourselves, kind of think of yourself as a piece of an ocean that just flows around and moves through things and can take any form it wants, any time it wants. You gain mastery over the time matrix as you move up. You gain mastery over saying, okay, well, I know I can shift my vibration here to go down to harmonic 1, or I can pull it up to here to go to harmonic 2. This is mastery of space, time, and matter. This is what a lot of scientists would like to figure out, but they're doing it the wrong way. It has to be done internally. Then you will master it, and we all have the ability to do it. When we get into harmonic universe 5, matter density level 5, this is where the Melchizedek Cloister runaway family is coming from. The ones that started our lineage, the human lineage down here. All the way up through, well, I should run them down, but all the way up through the matter densities to where we are down here. The Elohai are down here, and the Melchizedek Cloister families are up here in harmonic 5, density 5. That's where the Raja-Huga body is. So when you transmute yourself and expand all the way to your Raja-Huga body, you become a set of standing wave patterns, which from here would look like fire. That's your flame body. You become a sun. This is part of the reason why they refer to the DNA matrix as sun matrices, because they are getting you back to your pure radiation energy form, which from here would appear as light or fire. It also tells us some interesting things that I'm not even going to try to go into right now about what we see when we look up in the sky and we see flaming balls of fire. Energy is conscious, and consciousness is energy. They're not just suns burning energy. They are forms of consciousness. The planet is conscious energy. It's a different form than we're used to. Suns are energy. Stars are energy. In the old Native American traditions, they used to teach about the star fathers. They used to feel a reality of presence with the star beings, not just the ones who came from the stars, but the energy of the stars themselves. When we transmute ourselves all the way back up to the matter density levels, we become eternal identities, for as long as we want to stay in dimensionalization. When we blow ourselves out of there, which probably looks something like a supernova from our scientific perspective, we will end up in those levels of the energy matrix that are not dimensionalized, and there are levels of the body that go like that. We have the triadic matrix, and that is, they call it the Satana Huga body, but they call it the Merkaba body. And there's fancy names for these that aren't that important unless you're studying comparative religions, because some of the religions use some of these words, or pieces of these words. It's telling you what level of teaching these religions are coming from, if you know some of these. Like there's a religion called Ekankar that deals with certain teachings. They're dealing with teachings from the Akkadic level, or the Akkada body level. So there's all these correlations between other teachings that are out there that seem completely unconnected. It's all connected. It's all connected to the framework of the 15-dimensional matrix. Okay, let's see.
You have 30 minutes. You have 30 minutes.
Okay. Okay, this one is a more intense version of the one.
5 minutes.
5 minutes for what?
Change tapes.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, this was familiar from before, which was the chakra system, the body. What I'm focusing on here is showing the levels of the auric field that correspond to it. We'd have the Nada-Huga body, we'd have the Alpha-Huga body, we'd have the Beta-Huga body, and we would have the Mahara-Huga body. So I'm showing those levels. And it's showing you where the chakras cross through into them. If you follow these lines out, this, so when you get home, you want to look at this, you can see what these lines mean. They're the projectiles of the chakras. The energies actually come all the way here. And the more you break down these barriers of food bodies, the more those chakras are going to pull in. And actually, you start to have chakras merging together. And eventually, you turn into a body of light. That's when you're sending it out of here. But you don't have to. It doesn't, it is not something that's forced on you. You can control it at that point. When you get good enough where you could do it, you also have the ability to choose whether you're going to or not. All right, so this is just to show you the relationship of the auric field, that field that's around you, to the chakra system. This is another part of your anatomy. And if you look at the charts when you take them home, because I'm going to make sure you all have copies of them if you want them, you'll be able to understand it, because it's very clear. Things are labeled and it shows where they plug in. You go to the next one, please. Now this one I used in the other workshop to show where the Maharic seal was. Okay, can you pull it up, please, so I can see the bottom part? Okay, we talked about this area down here as being called the Maharic shield, and it's a dormant pattern of scalar frequency, which means it's in its off flash mode, but when you stimulate it with certain symbol codes and frequency, it brings it to life, and it starts its flashing rhythm, which means it starts transmitting its frequency through the body. We have not only the Maharic shield, which corresponds with the Mahara Huba body, we also have other shields. We have one that comes out around here that corresponds to it's called the telluric shield, corresponds to the Nada Huba body. That processes those frequencies. When the first 3 DNA strands are fully activated, this activates. Up here, we have the Doritic shield that corresponds to the Alpha Huba body. When you have strands 4, 5, and 6 activated, this activates. Can we pull it down, please? This one up here is the Turic shield, and it corresponds to the Beta Huba body, dimensions 7 through 9. It's a halo. There's also other configurations. When you look at the old religious paintings, they were trying to tell you something. The halos on the head were referring to oversoul integration that comes with activation of strands 7 through 9 that creates the Turic shield in the auric field. They knew the sciences, and they depicted them symbolically and visually. There are other things when you activate cathara centers in the body that create the wing configurations. The angels were the ones who had those cathara centers 6 and 7 that are located back behind the wings, activated, and they were transmitting frequency through the field. There are some winged beings, but there is a whole metaphysical translation that if you knew what those pictures meant, you knew the science, but only the ones who have been trained in the science knew what the pictures meant. All right, so this has been being shown to us and represented as something different. Again, we're looking right at it, we don't know what it is, because we're taught to look at it as something different than what it is. The greatest way to hide something, the way they've been doing it all along, is put it right before your face and call it something else. Okay, so when we're working with integrating the body parts, I want you to know the body parts here, because all of it, if you're interested in any of the biogenesis techniques that we use, you need to understand this anatomy, because you'll be, it'll refer to do this with this part and do this with this part. You need to know the anatomy. That's why I'm running it through here. Even if you didn't do any of those, just knowing that you have this structure, walking around with you, gives you a whole new playground of your consciousness, a whole new area of you to find and explore. Okay? We can move on to the next one. Okay, yeah, correspondences to the 12-strand DNA matrix. The Nada Huba body had it in the telluric shield, strands 1, 2, and 3. The auric field levels I have on here too. The etheric body, the emotional body, and the mental body. That goes with strand 1, 2, and 3. Strand 4, 5, and 6 go with the Alpha Huba body, the Doritic shield. They go with dimensions 4, 5, and 6. We get in axiatonal lines, which are one of Hazi language that haven't been here for thousands of years. So basically, this word needs a glossary. We just haven't had time to do one yet. But when you start to work with the programs, you get used to it. Oh, that means that. I remember that. That kind of thing. You get it out of context. You can read it and you can comprehend it by the context it's repeatedly used in. Okay, down here we have the Mahara Huba body, or the Christhood body. The Maharic shield, dimensions 10, 11, and 12. That's the fulfillment of it, the true Christhood pattern. We have the Christic body, the Buddhaic body, and the Nirvanic body. These tell you something about the different religious systems and what level they were trying to get you to develop. They all fit together. They all serve a different level of consciousness to get you into that Christ and Christos state. So you had the Buddhaic teachings, the true ones, when they were originally given, were supposed to help you develop the 11th strand of consciousness, activate the 11th strand, bring in the 11th dimensional consciousness. The Christ teachings were originally to help you bring in the 10-strand consciousness, and the Nirvana teachings, which are part of some of the Eastern philosophies, were intended to get you to stimulate the 12-strand. All of those activated together create the Christos body, or the inner Christ, which Christ was trying to show us and trying to demonstrate for us. We can go on, please. All right, here's the thing when I used to do privates, and I don't do them anymore because I got absolutely overwhelmed. I'm not a psychic, but I do tend to do beta-huva scans, which are DNA scans from the 9th dimensional level, because I've been trained in that, and because I know how to activate my strands. I don't stay at a 9th dimensional strand activation, or I'd blow myself up right now. But I can open those frequencies for perception when needed. I just want to show you one thing on here of how it works. We have here the 15-dimensional matrix that we've seen before in some of, do you remember the 15-dimensional matrix? I showed that to you before, right. I think I have one here. Right. Okay, so here we have our Huva bodies, or not a Huva body, that's our incarnate identity. We have our Alpha Huva body, that's our soul matrix identity, harmonic 2, harmonic 3. We have our over soul matrix, that's our Beta Huva body, 7, 8, 9. We have our Christ body here, the avatar identity, and the 12, 11, and 10, and the Rishi identity here. What's neat about the DNA strand pattern, 12-strand pattern, each of the 3 strands corresponds to one set of 4 Huva bodies. You're dealing with 12 strands, so you cut it off here. The Rishi is something else you go into after you become Christed. So you have 12 dimensions of consciousness. You have 4 groups of 3. 1 group of 3, 2 group of 3, 3 group of 3, 4 group of 3. You can tell by finding out what activation level is happening in your templates, what level of soul integration you have undergone, what level of oversoul integration. You can tell what your next step would be to your next step of evolution, beginning to the next level. Some people have the higher strands activated, but they don't have these activated yet, and they have these activated. Right now, most people that come in on the Aryan imprint, which is the root race imprint, have strands 1 through 3 activated, and they're just beginning the activation process of strand 4. All these little codes are starting to activate. Once strand 4 activated, they become D4 functional, and they have astral perception, be able to see auras, and all that kind of stuff. This is very useful because you can literally chart your development level. You can learn to see your own DNA matrix. So I wanted you to understand the correspondence between the DNA and the levels of identity and the 15-dimensional matrix and the chakras and all the things that plug into that. Okay. Yeah, here we go again. Here's the 15-dimensional matrix. Okay, we have those 3 levels of the energy matrix out here that correspond to ascended mastery, and then there's our incarnate, our soul, our oversoul, our avatar, and our Rishi identities. They are with us all the time. Because you can have distortions in the middle strands and in the middle levels of consciousness, when we, as far as connecting with your higher self, we get very specific. Higher self can be anything above where you are right now. If you happen to have some issues of karma happening up in this time cycle here, you will have distortions in your 4th, 5th, or 6th DNA strand that can mess you up here. What you need to do is start to build a conscious connection between here and here, and it'll start to progressively realign all of those things. When we're doing the Maharic Seal, we're activating these templates in the body, which is progressively creating a pillar of frequency, a pillar of light that links these together and progressively starts to clear all the distortions out and set them back to the original pattern, the Christ pattern. So it's a bit, that's why I say if you're going to learn one thing, use the Maharic Seal. It's very powerful. Okay, next one. Okay, this one I just wanted to show you real quick. Again, it's that same one showing the chakras, but this time we have where the Merkaba fields plug in. They are the light, sound, electromagnetic, counter-rotating electromagnetic fields that form in the auric field, and they are part of the process of being able to move through time zones, to be able to experience ascension. The Merkaba vehicle forms in the auric field as a result of the shields activating, those little things we saw at the different levels, as a result of the DNA activating, as a result of the chakras activating, as a result of the Kundalini activating. So that will form these fields in your bioenergetic field. And that is what allows the angular rotation of particle spin of your body to start shifting, where you can shift out of this time-space zone and into others. Okay, this is called the Crescent Star. It's called the Mahanta Merkaba. This is a 12-dimensional Merkaba vehicle. If you went into full 12-dimensional consciousness, activated every one of your 12 codes and didn't hold the grounding codes there to stay in body, you would become a light form. It would be shaped something like that, but it would be all radiating out of the center point. You can also end up as a body Where if you have a manifestation down here that's having a few codes unplugged just to keep in body, because you turn the light, you can't keep yourself grounded. You keep some of the codes unplugged in the 12th strand, stay in a body, you would have this configuration in your auric field. That would be the scalar configuration that you would literally be walking around in. You'd be what we call a form constant in here, where you have a holographic projection or illusion of a solid matter form, because it's all hologram, really. We get into that later in the higher teachings. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the full 12th dimensional Merkaba vehicle. Okay, this, I'm not even going to go over this because it's too long. It's in the Amente book, Voyagers 2. It's also in this little chart pack here, so you'll have it. This shows you the root races, okay? It's a big chart. This shows the 3 seedings of the races, who they were, what the cloister races were that came in with them, what strands each one were activating on, what period of time they came in, who were their host races, et cetera, et cetera. So it's giving you some of the G-code stuff. And it's there. I figured you might want to see that since we'd stirred up that one. Okay. Symptoms of 4th DNA strand template activation. We're all going into this, okay? Some of us are having a jump start. They're usually the people that are having contact. We're going into 4th DNA strand activation because the 4th vortex on the planet has already opened. It's beginning to transmit D4 frequency. That's going to interface with our bioenergetic fields, which is going to stimulate the activation of our DNA strands. Whether or not we're ready. So it's going to be a lot of people in the next number of years to start seeing weird things. There's going to be angel contacts and deceased relatives coming back and saying hi, and they're going to see all sorts of strange things. It's going to be very confusing, particularly for psychologists who are going to get like inundated with people having all sorts of weird experiences to the point where they're like, why am I drugging everybody? You know? I wish psychologists could understand what is happening, because they're going to start doing more harm than good. They're going to try to suppress these things with drugs because it's real confusing at first. With 4th strand activation, you get a lot of good things. You get, let's see, here's some of the symptoms that you get. You get less fragmented dream recall and the development of lucid dreaming. That's one of the first signs. You get clearer dream recall. Then you might start doing spontaneous out-of-body experiences and astral projection, usually starting from the dream state, which usually perks your curiosity. You say, ooh, did I do that consciously? And you start getting interested in working with it. You may start seeing specks, dots, balls, and projectiles of light flipping around the room or outside. And you think, what is wrong with my eyes? You are starting to pick up higher frequency coming in, and your eyes are starting to sensitize to it. Okay, let's see. This is a wild one. I've had this happen for a long time. You can see from the whites of your eyes, where all of a sudden you find yourself look at it from here. Your peripheral vision all of a sudden turns on, like somebody turned on a switch. It doesn't happen all the time. You just get these real clear visions as if you had just turned your eyeball that way. You're looking through the whites of your eyes. It's activating a different part of the eye mechanism. And I'm not an optometrist, so I don't know my eye mechanisms, but I think it has something to do with the rods and the combs in the eyes or something. 10 minutes? Okay. 20 minutes. Oh, that's wonderful. Good. Okay. I want to let you know these, because these are some of the things you need to watch out for. Because if you're already, even in this room, even interested remotely in the concept of ET contact, that's telling you something about higher consciousness and yourself. People that are still stuck fully in D3, that aren't doing 4th strand activation, could not care less about any of that flaky stuff, okay? When you start to realize there's a reality to this, or start to have experiences, that's where you're beginning 4th strand activation. It's a part of your natural evolution. And it helps to know that when you're going through it. It makes a lot more sense when you realize, oh, okay, this is normal. It's just, unfortunately, our doctors and things don't know exactly what normal is anymore, because we haven't had this for so long. Okay, you may start seeing auras around living things or inanimate objects. You may, let's see, oh, this one's wild. When you start to see through your eyelids as if the eyes are open. Did anybody ever have that yet? Isn't that wild? Where your eyes are closed, but you're literally seeing the room you're in. You know, why aren't my eyelids working anymore? It's a very strange, you're starting to change frequency, and you can see through the molecular structure of the eyelids. It's really bizarre. Another thing you can get visually is macro or micro vision, where all of a sudden you can like look at your skin and all of a sudden you can see all the minute little bacteria down there. Or you can see all the little holes in the skin cells, the dermis, the epidermis, and all those things, and you're not trying. It just like spontaneously turns on. Or you may get all of a sudden as if you were someplace a million miles out in space looking at everything from way up there. These are some of the things you will get with 4th DNA strand activation, okay? So don't think you're going crazy, you're not. You'll also get an increase in empathy, and telepathy, and psychic skills, and energy healing abilities. You'll find more energy running. Channeling, and this is why you still have to be careful, because if you do your heart seal, fine, but you'll start developing natural interdimensional communication, and that's where you get messed with, okay? Let's see. You will get, let's see, where else do we get communication? activation? Okay, this is where you also get the beginning of reincarnational memory starting to surface. Reincarnational memory, contact memory, and maybe for some of you, fetal memory. Usually fetal memory comes a little later. There's a blockage that's in the first DNA strand that has to be cleared with bioregenesis before you can unplug enough to remember all of it. You might start getting an emotional body feel for it. We start to remember being in that confined space, but to get like visual, full memory of it, you usually have to do some DNA work on the first strand. Okay? You'll also get, let's see, same dimensional overlays or ghost images of other scenes transposed over physical 3D reality. Where you might be standing there and all of a sudden you see a whole other scene, like a ghost image, right in front of you. Oh boy, I'm hallucinating. It's not a hallucination. You are beginning to pick up the reality fields that are in different harmonics or different frequency bands. It's perfectly natural, and it stabilizes after a while. It's just when it first starts, it's like really hard to blend those two spaces. Okay? Let's see. You'll start to feel a stronger sense of love and connection to the earth and to other living things. And at the same time, you may start to find this huge repressed anger for thousands of years toward humans. All of a sudden, you know yourself a little different. You feel you're a spirit in a human body. And you watch humans and you almost have a hard time relating to them because of what they've done. You start to feel the pain of the planet. I used to live in a place called Carbondale, Pennsylvania, where they absolutely raped the heck out of the earth by digging out the coal. And I would live there and I felt in my heart chakra this dead, crying energy. I felt the earth cry. And it was horrible for me to live there. And it's very painful. You may go through some of that. You get increased love and joy. At the same time, you just feel this sorrow for the planet and for the animals and all the things that are being harmed here. So you get through that, but it's a phase you may encounter. Okay. Again, you may get conscious contact with anything from angels, ETs, and to deceased people. You get your, let's see, direct cognition of knowledge from your higher identity levels. You just may spontaneously feel a burst of energy and all of a sudden you know something you just didn't know before. This is fun. This is speed learning. It's really great. You'll get more and more of this as your higher strands activate. As the fourth strand activates, you'll start to get part of your astral consciousness, what you've been up to on D4, is right now, your D4 body is going and having experiences. It's learning things, it's doing things. So is your D5 self and your D6 self. So you have a lot of things to learn, because it's not just you, it's learning things down here. Some of the things I just wanted to bring to your attention, you can also get some negative things. I wouldn't call this negative unless you resist it. You may get change in sleeping and eating patterns. You may find excessive periods of tiredness where your body's trying to get used to the new frequency, or absolutely manic states where you can't sleep for 2 days and you're wired and it feels great. You just can't figure out why you can't go to sleep, you're not really tired. That's okay. That's DNA activation. A lot of people at that point go running to the doctor. Something's wrong, I'm an insomniac. You need to understand, the old labels don't apply to strand activation anymore. They will repress it. If you try to take drugs to stop this stuff, it's actually going to make it worse. It's going to make distortions in the natural processes. You learn to work with it. Okay, I'm up tonight, so I'll work. So I'll do something interesting. And it'll balance out. It's just, when it first starts, you may get cycles of this, and then it'll calm down. Then you have another cycle. Okay, these are the hardest to deal with. You may get temporary mood swings or anxiety attacks or like manic depressive states like, wow, really bottom out and a couple days later. Or you may get hot and cold flashes and hormone fluctuations, which can create all sorts of weird stuff. So again, you might want to go running to the doctor or the psychologist to help you. It's better to really start to try to handle yourself. I'm not saying don't get treatment if you're having real problems, but try to realize some of the things they call diseases aren't diseases, they're signs of higher strand activation. And the people who are being trained medically just don't know this yet. So you have to create a balance. Okay, how far am I willing to go? If I'm really falling apart, yes, I'm going to go get help. And I'm not going to tell them I'm activating DNA strands, because that'll make no sense and they'll think I'm crazy until this paradigm gets out there enough where people understand. But it's much better if you can deal with it organically. Work with energy, work with the chakras, they work with bioregenesis. That's what these techniques are for, to help you through these processes. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. Okay, realizing your roles in power contact. I'm going to go through this real fast, and I want to make sure we get to the exercises that we're going to do tonight out there. This is again all in that chart pack. Okay, you were chosen for contact because you have the genetic potential for rapid DNA template bioregenesis and activation. Even if you're not an incarnate member of one of the hybrid races, they will not, none of the races, choose people who do not have the ability to rapidly undergo bioregenesis or DNA activation, because that's what they're interested in. Even the negative ones are interested in those patterns for their hybridization programs. So just the fact that you may be having contact would tell you there's a pretty darn good chance that you have some special DNA in there. that can work to your advantage if you know what to do with it. Okay? Becoming consciously involved with your DNA acceleration process. This is important because it will allow your dormant genetic potentials and spiritual awareness to awaken more quickly. If you work with this from this end, your higher consciousness is working from that end, you get there a lot faster. That's why when you do conscious evolution, it works a lot better than when your soul is just trying to move you through things and you kind of ignore the whole thing. Okay, let's see. When you are helping yourself, you're not just helping you. When you do this and you raise these frequencies in your field, get your DNA activated higher, get your consciousness higher frequency, you are helping to make a shift in the race morphogenetic field because of the 100th monkey syndrome, the critical mass syndrome. This is a scalar template interaction. So even if there's only a cluster of people who make these changes, it can literally change the outcome of all of the dramas on the planet. And that's what we're hoping for. That's what the Guardian Alliance is hoping for. Okay. Okay, this is some of the advantages you can learn on Bench. You can learn a lot of advanced knowledge. You can discover very quickly after fourth strand finishes activating. By then you should know why you chose to incarnate in this lifetime, and remember what you came to do in relation to the mass drama. You start to access what's called your soul contracts. You make contracts with yourself of, okay, I'm going to incarnate in this space-time to do this and be a part of this group thing. We all incarnate into individual stuff and group stuff to be a part of, group evolution as well as just, single evolution. You'll start to access that when you go into fourth strand activation, more and more of it. Okay. Once you become awake with these processes and become a multi-vector consciousness, become an embodied soul and know it, you'll be able to help other people do that. You'll be able to do stuff like, well, not necessarily like what I do. You don't have to go and say, hi, I'm hungry. But you'll be able to counsel others. You'll be able to see and look at them, and they think you're absolutely nuts because you have all these weird beliefs, and you'll look at them with this great fondness, realizing they're sleepers.